episode 159 of the 4Ps. And I'd like to kick things off by just acknowledging my incredible, wonderful wife, who has had a challenging professional year as a physician, as you can no doubt imagine, given all that's been going on. And we've been together nearly 16 years, and the fact that we keep surprising each other, learning new things, keeps our marriage fresh and exciting every day.
The 4Ps. Professional. Political. Practical. Personal.
A few days ago, I was working in my home office, and I heard an exasperated cry from the kitchen. You'd have thought that she swallowed something poisonous, or maybe a bumblebee got in the house, but no, she cries out, "How is this possible? This snickerdoodle cookie dough turned out to be cinnamon and sugar cookies. Where are the Snickers?" What? Snickerdoodles are cinnamon and sugar cookies. I don't know how she didn't know this, but she says, well, there are M&M cookies, so why wouldn't snickerdoodle cookies be made with real Snickers? These are the things that keep marriages fresh and exciting, my friends. Something professional. Sure, you know that Google and Amazon and YouTube are three of the biggest search engines for, well, everything. But you may not be aware that another US-based tech company is quickly climbing the ranks as another massive search tool and digital media empire. It's the Zillow Group. Even with the tumultuousness, craziness of the last 18 months, the real estate market remains quite strong. Inventory is lean, which leads to stable, if not rising, prices. And Zillow remains one of the biggest players, not only in the real estate industry, but one of the just biggest digital media players in the entire space as well. In fact, April was the fastest home price appreciation month in the history of Zillow's public data and reporting. The Zillow Group continues to see strength in traffic across mobile apps and websites, with visits up 19% year over year just in Q1 alone. And the real estate market is showing no signs of slowing down. This company reports that 8.9% of consumers plan to purchase a home in the next 6 months. That's crazy! The product suite that they have and continue to develop really is quite strong as well. And there are several additional products starting to move past the experimental and initial testing phases. Zillow's been around for over 15 years, but it's been undergoing a significant transformation ever since launching Zillow Offers about 3 or 4 years ago. That was when its premier agent feature began driving to a more direct connection, a transformation from just purely advertising to actually helping people move. The acquisition of another app called ShowingTime recently should serve as a way to increase a specific call to action that's very tangible. Right? Easily seeing a certain home at a particular time should lead to a higher close rate. Overall, Zillow's goal is to find more high-intent partners, regardless of the monetization model, to really own the entire process from beginning to end. But like so many others, Zillow's becoming a lifestyle brand, and it's focusing on improving the operational experience of homes. Now, the Zillow Offers process is becoming significantly more efficient. It's better at catching price inflections, and nearly everybody who sells their home, you first check your Zestimate, right, to see what it's worth. So the opportunity for them is clear going forward. Now, Zillow is marketing to extend consumer awareness as part of the Shop and Dream campaign that's been ongoing. It's more brand, though, than performance. Zillow's also on a hiring tear, recruiting for 2,000 plus people across the business, right? Technology, marketing, legal, accounting, finance, and more. But it's still very focused on efficiency. The last step in their vision of domination would be the mortgage business. And Zillow is currently building the foundation with loan officers, a tech stack, and more. The company already has a large purchase and refinance audience through Marketplace, and while it's not a major current area of focus, its rentals opportunities, it's massive. The strength for rentals in urban markets, you think about the acquisition of StreetEasy, especially in New York, but really in major urban and suburban markets, it's going to show some promise as well, and that's why Zillow is one to watch. Something practical. Depending on which source you trust, there are anywhere from 3 to 5 million books published each year. And while I have no statistics to validate this, I'd estimate that anywhere from 75 to 99% of those books are about leadership. Now, don't get me wrong, there have been some great books about leadership and ones that I've even talked about here. But a lot of these books are just new ways to talk about the same principles. One book, though, that definitely holds up and holds its place in original leadership expertise in history is Plutarch's How to Be a Leader. I first read Plutarch for a political science class in college, like 25 years ago, but I recently revisited the book after discovering it on my parents' basement bookshelf, along with like 100 other books whose location was unknown to me for these past 20 years after I graduated college. That's where they are, in my parents' basement. I'm pretty certain most of you have not read this book. And if you have, like me, probably not so fresh in your memory. But getting through many of the Greek names was a task unto itself, but the timeless rules of effective leadership have remained relevant in the 2 millennia since this book was written. The fundamentals of successful leadership haven't really changed that much. So here are 5 good lessons that I've pulled out. Lesson number 1. Leaders should want to lead for the right reasons. Lots of people think they want to lead. Some people want to lead because they don't like taking orders from other people. Others see it as a path to financial success. For Plutarch, his capital city was the center of many decisions, but local leadership mattered as much, if not more, than it still does today. And according to Plutarch, a budding leader should be motivated by a sense of duty and honor, but not an excessive desire for glory and public acclaim. Politicians who are motivated by glory make for tumultuous and unstable societies. And instead of making rational and moderate decisions, leaders grow reckless in their pursuit of fame, and as a result will act rashly, often to the detriment of the cities or the towns or the countries that they're meant to serve. So lesson number 2. Leaders must be of impeccable character. People are far more willing to criticize leaders than to praise them. The fame, the spotlight, they make it easy to spot people's faults, which happens if and when politicians are rightly scrutinized. Plutarch highlighted Cato, which I didn't know too much about him other than just knowing he was, a famous Roman leader. But he was motivated, Cato was, by the general welfare of Rome, not by the desire to improve his own reputation. On the other hand, he talks a lot about other Greek leaders who quickly gained reputation for extravagance and recklessness and indecency. Now, their actions, these people who are not motivated by good reasons, result in, oftentimes, they were forced out of leadership roles in Athens, exiled. Right? The Athenians were unwilling to tolerate the glaring flaws in their leaders. So lesson number 3, leaders should be guided by wisdom and reason. Only once we've learned to live in accordance with reason ourselves can we then try to govern others, was Plutarch's primary thesis. It seems obvious, right? But Plutarch's conception of reason is grander and more powerful than what we think of today. In fact, following Plato, Plutarch identified the principles of reason not with anything that we do ourselves as man, but as guided by God. And just as God rules the universe benevolently in accordance with reason, so too should leaders and governors care for the institutions and citizens that they lead, that they oversee. Lesson number 4. Leaders have to speak eloquently and persuasively. Now, back in the day, Athens had no king, right? So if you wanted to lead, you had to win over the Athenians. And whoever wanted to do that needed to do one thing very well: speak. Pericles provides us with an example of a politician who did it well, who got things right. He managed to convince his fellow citizens to remain neutral in a lot of the battles that were flaring up across Greece, and avoiding conflict, holding on to the wealth of the society and the security that the city already enjoyed. And later, as other leaders came in who were not as persuasive, even though public sentiment was against war and going to battle, the leaders couldn't convince the populace to stay out. And then lesson number 5. With age and experience comes wisdom. From Plutarch's point of view, older leaders actually have a few unique sets of traits and attributes. If a state gets rid of its older, seasoned leaders, replacing them with younger or less inexperienced ones, it increases the risk of instability. Younger leaders thirst for glory, power, exalted reputations, ambitions that often come into conflict with the welfare of society. According to Plutarch, then, the greater wisdom and maturity of older leaders is their greatest strength. Older leaders are mild and moderate in their decision-making, ideally suited to take the reins during periods of turbulence or disorder, which happen often when you're a leader. Older leaders are of supreme importance in training that next generation to take on duties of leadership. So you hear that, my young friends? Listen to your elders and keep us around at least a little while longer. Something personal. I am a huge sports fan. I love the Olympics. The 2020 Olympics were rightly postponed for a year with the global pandemic still raging. And while summer last year, 2020, saw a temporary decline in COVID cases, we knew it was only because people were spending a bit more time outdoors. And a year later, the COVID-19 virus is starting to meet its match in the form of a number of effective vaccines, but with many choosing not to take it, stupidly, and so many more around the world not able to access it due to just geography and politics, COVID has not yet been defeated. The opening ceremonies of the Olympics are set to begin in Tokyo now, a year later, in just about 6 weeks. Yet, as of this week, most of Japan is still under a COVID-19 state of emergency. Within Japan, the decision to proceed with the games has become a raging battle. Right? It's a hot topic between health officials, Olympic organizers, and the Japanese government. The concern is the speed with which a large enough percentage of Japanese people can get vaccinated. It's just not going fast enough. So that state of emergency has just been extended to really the end of June and now blankets most of the country. The pace of the vaccination has been slow. Initially, Japan vowed to administer 1 million doses daily, but it's currently only giving less than half of that. In fact, more infections and deaths are happening now compared to when Tokyo froze the games back a year ago. Japan's top COVID-19 advisor said it's not normal to hold the Olympic Games in a situation like this. More than 10,000 Olympic volunteers out of the estimated 80,000 needed have already quit. If outbreaks should happen, organizers are prepared to go without any spectators. Fine. I have personal friends who are likely to, if not scheduled to, compete in the Tokyo Games, and I know how important the opportunity is for them. For some, it's a once-in-a-lifetime moment for which they've been training all their lives for just a few minutes of opportunity. For others, it's the last chance they have to compete and win a gold medal on the Olympic stage. But how much risk are they willing to take? Athletes are more likely to take these risks than others, and are likely in better shape to handle it if they actually contracted the virus. The issue is the spread. Organizers believe that the Olympic Village can be maintained like a bubble. We saw it effectively with the NBA and WNBA. But that took place on a single campus with far fewer people and much greater control than the Olympics and the IOC can maintain. Ultimately, I'm not only concerned about my friends' health and all athletes and coaches and participants, but the larger impact of what an Olympics could do to hamper the battle against COVID. Ultimately, we're seeing variants continue to spread across the world, and we will win this, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. Something political. Now, a few months since Joe Biden's inauguration, we have to accept and realize that the honeymoon is over for Democrats, and it's time to sharpen the political focus. Back in his inaugural address, Biden famously stated that democracy has prevailed. But that was just one battle. It wasn't the war. And democracy's advances are already under attack from the right flank. On a state level, dozens of state legislatures are imposing new voting restrictions, and Trump allies are preparing for midterm elections now, congressional midterm elections, just 16 months away. With long-standing gerrymandering and these recent attacks on voting freedoms, Republicans are poised to retake control of the House of Representatives next year and set the stage for another contentious, dichotomous presidential election in 2024. At the root of these issues are much deeper levels of misinformation and conspiracy theories. It's not just theories, though, if you think about it. You want an example? Last week, when I was setting up some ad targeting parameters on Facebook to promote my daughter's t-shirt business, right? Unicorn Horn. Go check it out, unicornhornshop.com. So last week I'm setting up these ad targeting parameters on Facebook. And one of the options to target and filter is political views. Wasn't really relevant for me, but I clicked on it anyway just to see. The only one option for targeting is conservative right-leaning. It's binary. You either target conservatives with this or you don't at all. Think about that as a tool that current propagandists are using. As Trump allies still continue to push his false claims of election fraud, conservative media outlets, Republican Party leaders, they're supporting these lies. Another audit of votes is underway in Arizona, with more states threatening to follow suit and potentially lawsuits. Trump's even stated that he could just be reinstated as president later this year. Right now, local politics it's going to determine how this all plays out. State elections this year, 2021, for Secretary of State will determine election officials for the next election cycle and will continue to perpetuate potential assaults on voting rights. The effort to change voting rules, which I think is prompted by the failed effort to alter the election outcome of 2020, will set the stage for future attempts to overturn election results. GOP-led state governments will control the elections, and a GOP-controlled House of Representatives could potentially fail to certify a Democratic presidential victory in 2024. Both are threats to American democracy in the long term. Changes like these happen in small steps, incrementally, quietly sometimes, but they are happening right now. So take notice. We can't underestimate the gravity of this moment, this point in time, because what happens now over these next few months, this next year, could be a turning point in the next battle to preserve our democracy.